husband. If you really...
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and welcome to the Black and Muslim in Britain online radio show, Order Ramadan FM 2018. I am Saraya Bar. I'm joined with my lovely co-producers, Mohammed and Sakina
Oh, there you go. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
That is a mouthful. It's a proper tongue twister. Sakina Lenoir.
Hey, assalamu alaikum.
How are we both today?
I'm good. I'm quite excited about this episode.
We are.
Yeah.
So we are. This is episode 3, and we've been kindly asked by Ramadan Radio to bring Black and Muslim in Britain from videos into live, and we can discuss and talk about everything that we enjoy and what makes Black and Muslim great. So if you're currently watching us on Facebook, hi, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, and you can also listen and connect to us on Mixer, Twitter, and tune in every Saturday from 4 p.m. till 5. And we are a bit late, but that means we get to talk to you a bit longer. So if you are tuning in, send us a comment, send us a salam, let us know that you are listening, and if you want to join in any of the discussions, please do so via social media. So it could be Facebook Live or YouTube Live. Or you can look at our social media handles. This is a cheeky plug. Twitter is at BNB Project, and Instagram is Black and Muslim BRI. So today we're going to be talking about our episode 3, being black and finding love. Sakina, why are you laughing?
I'm just smiling at you. I was just smiling at you. Sorry.
Yes. So we're going to be discussing this episode, which was really great, and I'm going to hand it over to Sakina to tell me her thoughts. I mean, what did you think about the video?
Well, you know what, I think it's one of those topics, and anytime you talk about love, marriage, relationships, everyone's like, oh, everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, for real.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it was one of the most popular videos, and of course within those 5-6 minutes we didn't really get time to delve too much into being black and finding love, but just the experiences from the participants. It was a nice range of those that were married, that were sharing their stories, how they found their partners, and then those that were single, and the difficulties of being a black Muslim and trying to find love, and even to those that had been divorced as well. You know, it was a nice range of different opinions, and it really highlighted the struggle of, regardless of race, the struggle of finding a partner, you know. And in this day and age, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the difficulty of trying to find someone to get married to, the difficulty of staying married, the difficulty of bringing up children, all these things, regardless of what race you're a part of. It's a difficulty, you know, and that's what was nice to hear. Well, not nice, but it was nice to hear the reality of it.
Yeah, I think when we were filming this, it's probably the episode where it was most fun to film, because there was a lot of question marks around the phrasing of how do we best describe or introduce a topic around love and being black and Muslim. And I remember the first few minutes everyone's like, what do you mean? You know, we wanted to keep the episodes raw, right? We were like, actually, you know what, let's keep some of that in the episodes, and have people be confused about what's the nature of the question. And I think that was quite consistent throughout the series. There's a lot of elements where we wanted to keep the series and its episodes very raw and not censor what we want people to hear as a series, rather than what is actually being said by people themselves, which is one of the hardest things about production from a point of view anyway. But this was also one of the most well-received at the screening. I remember when we put it up, the amount of laughs in the room, the amount of I agree with that kind of thing, right? And etc. And it was the one I most enjoyed filming, and it was the one where we had some of the most interesting responses from the participants and from the audience. I don't know if you felt that way, Sakina.
Yeah, no, for sure. You could see it was, especially, it had a lot of ahs, you know, you had a lot of laughing as well. Like I just remember Abdul Karim. Abdul Karim's comment. For me, I remember when we were filming that, and he spoke about how Islam, you know, when we asked him the question, how has it been like finding love as a black Muslim? One of the first things that he said was, Islam has taught me how to be a husband. Islam has taught me how to be a man. You know, Islam has taught me how to find love. And I just thought, like,
Definitely.
the way he said it was so much better than how I'm saying it.
I've
Way
actually got a
better.
direct quote.
Have you go for the quote? Yeah.
One of the quotes he made during the video was that marriage brings happiness, and through that happiness you find love. He then went on to say, Islam actually taught me what love is and how to appreciate a woman for the creation that she is, and not for what society tells me how I should appreciate a woman. So for me, that was just so beautiful, the way in which he put it succinctly, because I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Muslims speak about marriage, there seems to be like a collective groan of like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Or do you think I'm wrong?
No, it's true, man. When I talk about marriage, I'm just like, oh my gosh, we've got such, like, you know, what are the words that they use? Fitna. There's like a crisis. So I don't know. I agree with you in the sense that when we do talk about marriage, it is quite depressing. And if you're not talking about finding marriage, you're talking about people getting divorced. Exactly. So it's something. It was really nice to kind of hear Abdul Karim say that and just remind ourselves that ultimately marriage is meant to be something beautiful. It's meant to be bringing two people together for the sake of Allah, you know.
Most definitely. And I just want to piggyback off the point that you made about marriage being referred to as a fitna or a crisis at the moment, because both yourself and Tanya Munira Williams touched on it being described as a crisis, and Tanya even goes further to break it down, saying being Black, Muslim and trying to find a partner can be difficult, and she believes that as she's getting older, she thinks it's becoming more and more difficult. And she says she guesses that she's becoming she likes the idea of growing old with somebody and developing with someone, but the fear that whether it will happen or not is one that worries her. And then just after that clip, you then went on to say, yourself, Sakina, I used to think that the reason I'm not married at the moment is because I am a Black Muslim woman, and within the Muslim community, but within every single community, if you were to have a hierarchy, we would literally be at the bottom. But then I realized, I look at some of my friends and they're not Black and they're also not married. So I then realized that I shouldn't take it too personal, because it seems like it's a fitna of our times where it's difficult to get married.
So weird hearing my own words read back to me.
OMG, you are not ready.
So I mean, it's like both points I can totally 100% relate to it, because I do identify as a Black Muslim woman, and there were times where I was on my own and looking to get married. So sometimes you can think quite insular about the problems that we face as women. But I guess what I want to back to you, Mohammed, is this something that Muslim men feel? I mean, we've had the brothers express their views about the only issues they face is if they wanted to marry somebody from a different race, whether their family will be accommodating to having a black member of the family sitting around eating Sunday roast and then pray.
What Black person eats Sunday roast?
I eat Sunday roast. It's amazing.
No, I do Sunday roast as well. No,
I feel like when I think Rakeen touched on it really well, where he started talking about it from a youthful point of view. We're talking about the challenges finding love and in the pursuit of marriage, and how difficult it is for young people. And I thought that was quite interesting, because like within the Muslim community, you have this time frame that is put on men and women, even more so women. So to say that there was a challenge from a young perspective was also okay. It was like, okay, so what kind of challenge do young people have in the pursuit of marriage? And most of that was were more like challenges not to get married, but like to stay married, whether that's like finances or having a home and all these little factors. And I was like, well, how exclusive is that to the Black experience? Because that would just be a really like generic marriage problem in our society now, from like a faith-based point of view, where it's better is encouraged to try if you have the means to get married young, right? So I was kind of like, I took away from that comment quite an interesting point of view. And then when you listen to people like Abdul Karim in the series, and he talks about what Islam has, how Islam has assisted his growth as a man and has assisted his growth as a husband, it was quite profound. And I'm just trying to flash back to my younger days when being around my circle of brothers and how marriage is discussed. I think you have it two ways. You have those who are not fussed about who they marry, and it's kind of like, if it happens to be someone from my race, alhamdulillah. If it happens to not be, alhamdulillah. It's kind of like that two-way street, and that's kind of like the path that I took down. And this was like more a factor of like in the home. Me and my mum used to talk about it, not so often, but like once in a while, like especially after I graduated. She was like, Mohammed, you graduated now. You know what are you gonna do? You have a time. And my mum was really open. Like, I think Somali families are really open with talking about love as a whole. I think from my immediate experience anyway.
I think from my experience as well, other Sierra Leonean families, I'm not entirely sure, but my family's very unique.
Yeah.
But they were very candid about talking about love as well, and who you should go for.
Like when you watch like television shows and TVs and like you know, this may be they come home and the daughter or the son tells their mum, you know, I have a partner, I have a girlfriend, I have a boyfriend, and there's this immediate panic, right? But I felt like when I was in the pursuit of marriage, and I told my mum I want to like approach the sister's family, there wasn't this like panic attack. If anything, the only panic attack that was that Mohammed, you're really young, right? But there wasn't a panic attack about the purpose of pursuing it. Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, do you have this? Do you have that? Those kind of questions were out of the way. Okay, alhamdulillah, let's meet this girl. It was like let's do this thing, right? It was bish bash bosh. You know what I mean? But when the immediate circle within the brothers, I felt like that was more consistent. And yeah, you do have once in a while where there is this pursuit within certain demographics who would be like, yeah, I want to find a sister who is outside of the race, and they'll be very explicit about it. And what can you do in those scenarios, right? Like it's kind of awkward. Like,
but why are they specific? Is it because I know when it comes to this is one of the issues that Black Muslim women have. One of the issues I have. I'm not going to speak for all Black Muslim women. Is this idea of, and we were talking about this obviously earlier, is this idea of interracial relationships. Yeah. And as a Black Muslim woman, often. And obviously I mentioned it in the video, we're seen as at the bottom, we're seen as the less kind of desirable. And within the Muslim community, it seems like if you're either Asian, Arab, or ambiguous race, kind of don't know who where she's from, they're the most desirable.
And white converts.
You know what? I think they're losing it now.
Really?
I think they've gone down.
I thought, because you know what? So so I'm married to a Muslim white Welsh woman, and the kind of responses that I get from Muslim men is so cringe.
What's the
so like
interesting,
because this is why I feel like they are also in that bracket of fetishization.
Yeah.
I hate saying that word.
It's a hard word.
It's a hard word to say, right? How like certain Muslim women are like become a fetish to marry. So I remember when one brother within my wider circle, we were talking about marriage, and then the topic of converts came up, and I was just kind of like, can we not talk about converts like this? It's kind of cringe. And then anyway, he later found out that I was married to a white Muslim woman, and he was like, mashallah, you done really well.
You're gonna get into Jannah for that.
I was like, what? I was genuinely like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I was like, why have you put her on this pedestal?
It's funny you should mention.
And it's just it was really weird. Like, I was like, I don't get it. Like, I was poking. I was like, I don't get it. And he was like, yeah, inshallah, I hope to also marry a white convert. And it's like, okay, like my process of marriage wasn't I was looking for, like I was like walking to the mosque and I went to the imam and said, Imam, is there any white converts? Right? And actually it's more problematic than that. When you say converts, the immediate is used as a synonym for white.
Yep. Yeah.
So when a brother says to me, I'm looking for a convert, I usually ask, okay, what what type of convert, quote unquote, right? What do you mean? I need more detail. He's like, yeah, white sister convert to Islam, right? And isn't that, I'm like, what? So how has that become a synonym for convert?
Because if you got him a black convert, he'd be like, nah, mate.
Do you know what I mean? So that I had the problem with that. So I get a lot of these really like weird love affairs with, and sort of like a strange sort of, I don't know, not jealousy, but like some strange sort of like, oh man, you're in a really good position. I also want to be like, and I get really uncomfortable. And I had this conversation with my wife a lot. Me and my wife are really open. I just tell her, like, what is it? Like, what is it that makes this love affair with the white Muslim body and using conversion as a synonym for whiteness? Like, it's fascinating. So yeah, there's really like, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Sorry. You were gonna say something.
I was going to interject anyway, but you just said no. I'm going to make my point.
sorry. Like, yeah, but there is this like love affair with the other in the Muslim space.
But I think
like
within the
hierarchy.
black Muslim, within black Muslims, especially those that are, because now it's fashionable to be woke. So those black Muslims that are kind of like, we've got their African swag. If you were to marry a white woman, you would be looked down upon. People would come for you hard, you know? So that's why the next best thing now is to marry an Arab, Asian, or someone or North African. That's and unfortunately,
because it's a safe space for them.
Yeah.
Because the point I was going to make was that within the video, Habiba Kande actually made a point. He said, an issue that I think is prevalent within the Muslim community, especially within the black community, a lot of men I don't think are open and honest about, is that a lot of us are desiring a non-black woman. This is even prevalent, even if they go to the points of being woke or extremely pro-black, they would always opt for a woman who is of a lighter hue or mixed race or Arab or Asian, or racially ambiguous.
Is that fair to say, Mohammed? And you're here as a man.
And I think one conversation I had in this space when I was much younger is I asked a brother, like, why are you so specific? Because for me, that worries me. And I know a lot of people, I actually get a lot of like grief from it. It's like, well, you're married to a white convert. You were also looking. And I was like, actually, I wasn't looking. And these are conversations I had with my mum. My mum was like, what type of woman would you bring home? And I was like, well, any that I find a genuine, like, really cool relationship. Like my wife was a friend of mine. She was in my like Islamic Society committee, and we were just like within my immediate circle. Like there was nothing obvious about my pursuits or her pursuits, nothing at all. And it was alhamdulillah, I like to say that my marriage and how it blossomed was very organic. And it wasn't this like love affair with search. But when I spoke to some brothers about this topic, and this is one thing that's always stuck to my mind, especially in the explicit pursuit of marrying an Arab woman, and this is black men, was I want my children to learn Arabic so they can be closer to Islam. So it'd be easier for me to pursue an Arab woman. So the mindset was centered around faith and centered around language. And I was like,
but you can't just send them to madrasa for them to learn Arabic.
Like, well, that makes no sense, because there are many women who are not Arab who are fluent Arab speakers. Like, I don't.
And there's many women who are Arab and their children don't speak a word of Arabic.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So the pursuit always threw me off, and that I felt that was quite consistent when in my immediate circles of speaking to black brothers who were in the pursuit of marriage. Like this wasn't always the case. Some of them were just like, it would be, or some of them were really like, if anything, problematic. Were like, black sisters, they give you hard time. Yeah. And it was like, okay, that's BS. And it'd be like, it's easier to have a wife who can look after the home if she's from this demographic or that demographic. And I'm like, these are all nitpicky, really silly ideas. You can, if you wanted to achieve that, I'm sure you could achieve that with anyone. I don't think that's specific. I'm not judging how you want to live your life as a Muslim male and the sort of household you want. But the detail was so superficial and not true, because that can be achieved within any race of a Muslim woman. So
and that's what I think is really concerning when you hear these sort of comments and these reasons. And for me, a lot of people say to me, Sakina, are you against interracial relationships? And I'm like, no, I'm not against interracial relationships. If I was against it, I wouldn't be Muslim. Like, as a Muslim, you can't be against an interracial relationship, because that's you saying, I'm going to deny someone. I'm going to say, I'm not going to marry this person based on their race. But what I am against is the reasoning behind interracial relationships. And it's important. And some people may not, especially if you're not within the Black Muslim community, you may be like, but what's the problem? But if you look at the statistics, not within the Muslim community, but apparently 48% of Caribbean men are in interracial relationships, in comparison to Pakistani men, which is 8%. So if you're looking at, I know statistics, obviously the reasoning behind that, there's different reasons. But for me, those statistics, if they are correct, it makes me think, why do these Black brothers not love me? Do you know what I mean? Do these Black brothers not love their Black women? Why is it such a high percentage? Why is it that they're no longer seeking after Black women? And it's kind of, when you look at these sort of reasons, it's, as Habib said, you have to be real. Like, if you're going to go after an Arab woman or an Asian woman, if that's your preference, fine. But be real about it. Do you know what I mean? Accept that you have a problem. And that problem sometimes can come down to self-hate. Do you know what I mean? If you don't love yourself, how can you love your own women, your own community? Like,
the only time where I was in defense of the reasoning that I gave is when the brother was Arab speaking himself. So the only time where I've been defensive of this case is when the brother was Arab speaking himself. I was like, okay, that's a genuine preference for what's important to the brother, because that's who he is. I think that was the scenario when I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I feel that makes more sense. But if you're a Black brother who doesn't speak Arabic, and you want your wife who speaks Arabic to do all the work for you, that's also another problem as well. Like, that's another issue. So I felt that was a more like insincere reason for me, and I'm being really blunt. This was from my experience. I don't know what the experience of other Black brothers have had, but from the ones that I've spoken to who weren't Arab speaking at all, and their pursuit was, but you know, I want my children to speak Arabic. Brother, you don't speak Arabic yourself. It's like, what, your wife's gonna do all the work? Bruh, come on, man. So I felt that was an insincere reason, and that's me being really harsh. So I felt more respected of brothers who were honest, and they were like, I'm Arab speaking fluently. I'm sorry, these are Black brothers who are fluent in Arabic. So most of them who were coming from Sudan, and my immediate friend circle, I have a lot of friends from Sudan, and I was like, yeah, I get that. I was like, I felt that was a just reason, because that person never excluded Sudani women. So they were like Arab speaking, so that could include my country, Sudan, a black country, or that could include Arabs from other areas of like the Middle East or the MENA region, and I can be down with that sort of sincerity over someone who doesn't speak a language and they use that as their reasoning for pursuit. And I just find that a bit of a strange sort of preference check, like a checklist.
Or in their preferences, what they do, and this is, they have their preferences, but then for some reason they want to belittle. So it's like, oh, I like Arab women because of this. Fine, that's your preference. But they add on to that, they'll be like, because Black women are this. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you don't need to kind of bring in that, hey, if you have this preference and everyone's attracted to different people for different reasons, but don't kind of belittle and insult your own women.
But then that goes to show that there's something deeper underlying for their preference, and it kind of like projects their self-loathing as opposed to whether they genuinely wish to seek having a relationship with somebody who is other. And sometimes I personally believe that some people who do say that they have a particular preference, and then in the same breath tear down women who share the same ethnicity as, or the same background as them, I feel as though they are trying to atone for their own self-loathing about the race that they're part of, by feeling, if I'm with this woman and I have offspring, I'm going to be diluting my blackness.
I'm also quite critical of generic, not just Muslims, but of couples who are in interracial relationships and marriages, because they also indulge in this, well, I married outside of my race, and look how beautiful my kid's gonna come out. It's always centered around beauty standards, right?
Exactly.
Like, this is so consistent, whether Muslim or not. Those in interracial marriages who do have the mindset that they've made the best decision in the world, and you know, great, I hope you have a wonderful marriage, right? No one's doubting that. Alhamdulillah, marriage is a beautiful thing. But when it's centered around beauty, and what their kids are going to look like.
Yeah.
Like I actually get wildly offended when people tell me, "Oh, Mohammed, you're gonna have beautiful children." I'm like, well, I might not. so
Inshallah, you will.
I was like, yeah, inshallah, if it happens, isn't it? But like, that wasn't my pursuit for the purpose of love. Do you get it? And
Exactly.
I feel that's like, if anything, so I also feel like people who are in interracial relationships, they have, I hold them to account as well. They have a responsibility with how they talk about interracial relationships, because there's this fetishization of being from one race to another and merging together this beige child with like various characteristics, and this is like the beauty.
So
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm being really mean now. I'm being really
But it's
mean.
true, and they use Islam as well to kind of say, oh, it's important that we all need to mix. And you know what? Alhamdulillah, we do have amazing like different cultures, and it's nice to kind of bring different cultures together. But it's all to do with the intention, and it's important that we address why people are seeking after certain races.
And realistically speaking, the glorification of mixed race marriages within Muslim communities is always with a black brother and any other race sister. You never see
the black
woman in the forefront or being championed as being an interracial relationship, which a lot of people who are watching probably think, what the hell are you talking about, Saraya? Because
no, you speak the truth, man. You speak the truth.
I'm in an interracial relationship. Inshallah, I'm going to be marrying my fiance. He's half Moroccan, half Pakistani. And
how was that for you? How was that, because people would describe you probably as like, oh yeah, Saraya, the pro-black, Afrocentric. Oh my gosh, she's marrying a non-black person.
I was even thinking, I know we talk about like the way about black men and their preferences. And what is it about the fetishization of women, non-black Muslim women, and how they view black men? And I think that's another conversation we don't touch up on, because there is this, like, you see it on social media all the time. Right? Arab sister posts the struggles of her pursuit of marrying a black brother and the family rejected it. And these are actually bad. It's not a good experience to go through that, and for the family to be racist and prejudiced towards their daughter who's Arab or South Asian in the pursuit of marrying a black brother. But it's the glorification on it, I find it a bit odd. And the way that black men are talked about.
Yeah, because everybody loves black men.
I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody. I think just in general, black people are over-sexualized and they are fetishized, and you're like this exotic, mythical being. Oh my gosh, my life will be complete if I have this black man and I have mixed-race babies. Some people actually pursue to have a black man so that they can have mixed-race children, which I think is quite a damaging life goal, to be honest. But
how's your experience, Saraya?
My experience, like you said, I'm quite Afrocentric, pro-black. A lot of people probably think, oh my gosh, sister, how can you say that? But my goal was to marry a black man initially. So actually it's quite coincidental. Last year, the 3rd of June, I was performing at an iftar in memory of Muhammad Ali, and I was reciting poetry. Then a couple of days later, I got a message from the event organizer saying, oh sister, there seems to be a brother that's taken a liking to you. He's a nice brother of Asian and Moroccan descent. And in my head, I was like, well, what are you telling me for? And I was like, okay. I was intrigued because it was a really polite way of approaching me, because usually people will just like find you on social media, slide into the DMs and be like, salam sister, how are you? But I thought it was really respectful.
I saw you in the Black and Muslim Britain series. Can I slide in? Man, go through the welly, man. DMs are closed.
So he said he wants to be introduced to you. So I was like, okay. The least I could warrant was like, okay, I'll meet you, because you've done it in such a respectful manner. And then it just so happened that everything that I'm passionate about and what I enjoy, he likes it too. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was able to ask him quite candid questions, and then he was able to answer it back as honestly as possible. One of the first questions I asked was like, do you have a fetish for black women? And he was like, no, but I do believe that black people in general are over-sexualized. And I thought, okay, cool, so we can continue talking.
He's woke, y'all.
He's woke. He
woke.
He understands. There's a level of understanding. So, because sometimes I feel as though you would have to do a lot of education if your partner is of a different race to you and they may not understand the struggles that you're going through. You'd have to do a lot of teaching. So the fact that I didn't have to do as much teaching was a plus. And the fact of the matter was, even though I said ideally I would have liked to have been with a black man, I always had this ethos that happiness is happiness and love is love. If I find love with somebody who's from like Mars and they had like pink polka dots on a green body, I'd still probably say okay.
But why did you initially want to seek a black man?
I don't know. I guess mainly down to preference and thinking that it will be easier. Like it will be easier to raise our children together. We've got a common understanding. We understand the pitfalls that society holds for us, so it will be easier to raise our children in, and so on and so forth. And apart from my few Asian and Arab friends, all I know is the black experience. So for me, if I was to end up with a non-black spouse who didn't have an understanding of what I was going through, and I didn't have an understanding of their world, we would have it would be a lot of like juggling, a lot of learning, and maybe even a lot of friction because we won't be able to understand one another. So I guess it was just me feeling that it would be easier to understand and maneuver through life with a black partner, which you plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the better planners. And
Allah knows, man.
I was thinking, have any of you watched the Netflix series Dear White People?
Yes. No, actually, I watched the movie. I didn't watch the Netflix series.
I feel like the episode 1, Sam's story, was it Sam?
Yes, Sam. And
Sam's this character who is like head of the Black Students Union at her university, and has very big on various movements that affect the black community in America. And her boyfriend is this white guy, and the response from the students in the black movement are just like, what the fudge, right? Right? It's like, what the hell is going on? How can you do this to us? And when I first watched the episode, I was really intrigued. I was like, I want to see what that from the American point of view, especially anyway, because of the history of civil rights movement, and they have a greater connection to the pursuit of civil liberty and justice, whereas we have that in the UK, but we operate the black student movement in a very different light. And I was really fascinated by her the way they displayed her pro-blackness and the challenges of being in an interracial relationship and the attack that she got. Do you ever feel that you have that sort of accountability to your pro-blackness as well? Do you ever feel like people are always judging you from the outside?
Oh, absolutely.
Also, not from the outside, from within the black community.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the person I'm with, he's very private, so I don't post up pictures of us or really discuss our relationship. But I actually have had instances where people have made it a joke, but it's quite a sensitive topic where they say, "Oh, Miss Black Lives Matter is with somebody who isn't black," or yeah, I've had a few instances where my blackness or my loyalty to the cause has been brought into question because of who I'm with, or I was once told, you're the type of person who talks about all these quotes and getting woke, and you get gassed by somebody who isn't even black. And I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But do you know what? Can you understand? Like that, there's no justification for that. That's kind of that's not right. Do you know what I mean? But do you understand where that's coming from? Where constantly in society, we're constantly reminded, and the images that we're plastered with on social media, it's always about interracial relationships.
Yeah.
Even if it's not interracial relationships, sorry, it's always about a black man with a light-skinned woman. You know, when we look at our celebrities, we look in the music, when we look at rappers, it's always about light-skinned women, light-skinned women, light-skinned women. So obviously when you see somebody that you respect and they've also followed that same route for whatever reason, because everyone has their own reason, you are going to be slightly disappointed because you're probably thinking once again, oh yeah, they're kind of, oh, we've got a phone call.
Oh, we do have a phone call.
Ooh, we've got our first phone call.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can figure this out.
Okay, cool. I know there's a button that we have. Has it stopped ringing? Oh gosh, this is not good, is it?
Let's see if we can get our sound engineer in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get
No,
Usman.
continue. Yeah, continue, Sakina.
Maybe please do ring back because we'd love to hear other people's opinions because I know this is kind of one of those topics that everyone has so many different opinions.
This is
and
gonna be fire.
I can't.
Yes.
Have you got someone? Have you figured out? So you.
I figured out how to do it. Both
No.
they've gone. He came in.
That's okay. Please do ring back.
Please
We'd love to
call
hear your
back. We
opinion.
would
Yeah.
love to hear your opinion. I personally feel as though, again, there was a quote that's floating around online saying that the most, or it's Malcolm X said the most, the black woman is the most unprotected, unloved, and
Yes.
everybody's after them. So it's like for me, I just feel like I can't even catch a break because prior to me meeting my fiance, I was on Muzmatch, I was on a number of different sites. I made my profile specific as to who I was seeking. I would speak to some brothers. It would not go further. I'd have to deal with colorism where I may not even be deemed attractive enough for the same said black men that I was so staunchly saying I'm going to marry a black man.
Yeah.
And if they were interested in me, they weren't Muslim. So for me, that was a no-go area because I've always had it in my mind that I want to marry somebody
non-Muslims on
who's Muslim.
Muzmatch.
No, this was offline.
Oh, okay.
But like, no, on a serious note, it's like, or you'll be on Muzmatch, the people who you're interested in, they're not interested in you. And if you do end up speaking, after a while, conversation will go completely stagnant. And then you find somebody, and then you're told somebody who genuinely cares about you, you care about them, you want to start your life, and then again you get called a sellout. It's like, but what am I selling out to when the people that I was like caping for, they weren't interested? It's like, what do you do?
I'm intrigued by that because I feel like when there is this discussion of like selling out, people don't ask the right questions.
Yeah.
People who are very critical don't ask the right
What
questions.
are the right questions?
So like, not even like, how did you meet this brother? How did it come about? You like really generic questions around how the relationship came to blossom to where it is now. And then they make a judgment way before they even ask those questions. So it's very superficial. They see you, they see a non-black Muslim brother, and it's like, bam, she's a sellout, rather than like asking immediate questions. And I always feel like that's kind of, even from a faith-based point of view, very disingenuous, and very like uncomfortable, because so if you told that story to the same people who were coming for you, I bet their response would be different and be more. Their response would be more like sympathetic or empathetic.
No.
You don't think, even if you told them that?
Nope.
Oh wow, interesting.
But it would. I think a lot of people who would usually judge you on just seeing you would probably kind of realize, you know, how that came about, and they would kind of step back if they asked the right questions. And
I don't think so.
all right. Trying to be a bit positive here.
No, I genuinely don't. I don't believe so, unless you have that level of understanding, because you have some people who are so for the cause that they can't fathom it. That as far as they're concerned, they feel as though you should wait for.
Is that
right
Muslim? Is that
person.
within the Muslim community?
I'm not entirely sure about the Muslim community, but in the wider pro-black space or the pro-black sphere, they would think like that. If you are if you identify as pro-black and you happen to be Muslim, you're more lenient because you know that Allah says that you can't discriminate against somebody when it comes to marriage on something as trivial as race. But when you look at different nuances and so on and so forth, if you are identifying as being pro-black, you have to be, it's not just you buying a dashiki and watching Black Panther like 10 times in the cinema. You have to be about that life, and that means upholding the black family. That is one of the tenets of as Dr. Umar Johnson likes.
Yeah, because I was going to say, can you do that, Muhammad and Saraya? Sorry, can you do that and not have a black woman by your side?
That's a tough question. I think naturally, like, because I'm always going to look at it from a faith-based perspective. The sort of education that you send to your children around could shape how that child views blackness. And for me, that I see that as more significant, because you have many people from the black community who for various reasons, yes, of course, that could be colonial history, the way the black body has been destroyed by the eyes of colonizers, right? Would hate themselves, and they generate this hate towards themselves. And it's even those who don't generate hate have a complete disconnection from blackness beyond their skin color. So we could just look at Kanye West for an example. I know that's really extreme, right? But yes, he has. To be fair, maybe that doesn't work because he's in an interracial relationship. But you have challenges with people who are in black relationships, both couples both being black, and not understanding the nuances of blackness.
Yes, that's a good point.
So it's kind of like, okay, so who qualifies and who determines how pro-black you are, because you married outside of your race? And for those who are in a black marriage, how more pro-black are they if they choose to or not know or engage with the discourse and the nuances of blackness? So it's kind of like, I don't really buy into that sort of like isolated understanding of what blackness is supposed to look like in the home.
100%. I think
that's as far as it goes. I won't be as critical beyond that.
I think for myself, if you're going to look at it face value, and if you look at some of the theories, we have got a caller. Bear with me for a moment. Hello, caller. Walaikum salam.
Yes.
Hey, can you just talk louder, please? We can hear you. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I want to recite math for Bright Star.
That's the show afterwards, sister. So, assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, the show's you've got 20 minutes. Our show finishes at 20 minutes. So if you phone back in 20 minutes, you'll get to recite some of your nuts.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wow.
I bet they're taking it back by the discussion, isn't it? This ain't the right show.
Alhamdulillah. That's always good to know.
Was I talking?
Yeah, I can't remember. I was talking about like how the isolated understanding of what blackness in the home looks like.
Yes. It's funny you should mention that. There was a note that was raised. I think, Sakina, it was you that raised it, and it's talking about the home and whatnot, and also the role that the black father plays. And there was a point that sometimes the only time you see a black father with his kids by himself is when his kids are mixed race.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not even joking. I promise, something that my mum actually said. She pointed out a long time ago she pointed out when I was younger. And I was like, really? And then I actually started to watch, and honestly, every single black man that I've seen with a pushchair, and you look at the baby, it's a mixed race baby. I'm not judging. This is just an observation, literally. Start looking at it. This is just an obseration. I'm not saying if it's
I don't know why I just looked at Mohammed.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying anything. True. I'm just saying in my, in my research, that's actually like maybe twice I've looked and it's always, and if it has been a black man, it's definitely been a West African man. But that's just an interesting observation. I don't know what that says.
I don't know, maybe Southwest London is different, but I've definitely seen the standard black male pushing his buggy and being a black baby in there. So
And with no woman, like it's a black man by himself. I'm talking about.
by himself with his wife, girlfriend, whatever.
He needs to come over to South
I
London.
think
then.
you need to, because it's like I see a lot of black men out with their children, more so in parks and open spaces. You'll find them there.
Yeah, it's interesting just to add, because I know I was reading an article on Akala's new book, and he was talking about obviously growing up in a mixed race family and his father not necessarily being around, and his mother who is a white woman raising him. And for him, you know, actually there was a point where he actually realized, oh my gosh, my mum is white. Do you know what I mean? As a child, you just see your mum as mum. And there was a point in his life where I think he got into some kind of trouble. And that's when it kind of hit him. He was like, yeah, my mum is white, you know. And even though she has tried to raise me as a black man, because mixed race children often are not treated as mixed race children, especially boys, they're treated as black boys. Do you know what I mean? So even though you may be 50%, or if you wanna, even though you may have some kind of white heritage in you, you're a black person. And so when it comes to the police, when it comes to certain laws, you're going to be treated as a black person. And so for a non-black woman having to raise black boys, there's a struggle in that. And if you don't have the right woman, if you don't have the right partner, that's going to be very, very hard on the children, you know. So it's also, I know some people would say, why are we spending a whole hour talking about race in a marriage? Why are we spending a whole hour talking about whether or not you're black, white? You know, some people may see this as very trivial, you know, because really your race is only one part of finding a good partner. But it does add to the marriage. It is very important to make sure that when we're talking about race, we're talking about history, we're talking about the family, all of this does add up to making sure that you can find a good partner. And if your partner doesn't understand your race and doesn't understand your culture and doesn't understand your history, and that, as you said, could be a black person that might not understand it, or it could be a white person or an Asian person, then that's going to kind of be a bit problematic for the upbringing of your children, you know, because it's important that your children know who you, in my opinion anyway, it's important that I want my children, inshallah, if I do have children, that they know where they're coming from, regardless of whether their father is black, white, or whatever, you know. Yeah,
definitely. I feel, and I feel it's also quite inconsiderate when people say stuff like, oh, why are you centering the subject of love around race?
Yeah.
Well, one, go start your own documentary on your race if you're so concerned about discussion of like blackness and love. Two, this came up in almost every discussion on our episode on like being black and finding love as Muslims. And so we have to be honest about this is the reality and the experiences of black Muslims, and race comes into it most of the time, and this was shared in various discussions, whether it was the fetishization of the black body, the fetishization of non-black Muslims, non-black Muslim women, and we can't deny that this reality exists. So we need to talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we unpack challenges, and the more comfortable people are in their pursuit of marriage and the reality of that.
Yeah.
So if you genuinely do have a preference and you're like a non-black Muslim woman, and you're trying to, and your preference is a black Muslim male, then deal with the realities of blackness.
Get woke.
You have to. And this goes in the opposite way. If you're a non-black Muslim male and you have that preference of pursuing a black Muslim woman, then don't be uncomfortable with the reality and the challenges that comes with.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and yes, that comes down to race. And I think if you're trying to sidestep away from that issue, maybe you shouldn't be in pursuit of a black person as your marriage partner, because you're not willing to deal with the challenges that comes with and those maybe unique ones that you probably weren't aware of, even the individual themselves weren't aware of. But I do hope one thing I do hope is that the discussion around love and blackness moves beyond the superficial space, and we talk about like rooted issues.
Yeah.
And I feel that's where Habib Akande is really honest, and he's like, do black men have a preference but they don't want to talk about it? And that even makes me look at myself, and I'm like, all right, so when I married my wife, who I'm married to now, is like I've been married for oh my gosh, my anniversary is coming up in 2 days. I know, right? So I've been married for 2 years. when I was in the pursuit of marriage, did I have that preference of marrying someone outside my race? Because in the family home, me and my mum only spoke about like Somalis. And I was like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. I was like, yeah, well, yeah, if I marry a Somali woman, it happens. And my family's quite unique, I must admit. And I said, and if it doesn't happen, and that's the case, then how do you feel about that, mum? She's like, I don't care. She's like, if you're happy, and she said, in Islam we can't discriminate. My mum was really consistent, and it is consistent. Like my brother, his former wife was Somali. My sister's husband is Somali. I got 7 sisters and 1 brother. My other sister's husband is Moroccan. My other sister's husband is Filipino Muslim. My sister's fiance is Nigerian. So my family have been very consistent with marry who you want, without the idea of having a direct preference. And if it happens, it happens. And all my family members have been like, if I marry a Somali, alhamdulillah. If I don't, alhamdulillah. And it's like more to do with consistency, and that we moved away from being superficial. And I feel like if we have more discussions around what Habib is censoring, I think there we can get with the root issue, because there are people who have really strange preferences, and it's really unhealthy with the way they describe or talk about the person they're in pursuit of marriage with. And I think that's where I'm like, okay, I'm down for supporting that cause, because that's breaking communities to some degree, because later when you realize that actually beyond the superficial nature you don't click with that person, or because you had a really like consistent, I must have a woman who is of this race, and that leads to like a breakdown in a marriage. We can't have those preferences like that with that mindset. It has to be far more real than that, and more than superficial. So sorry, I just had a massive rant.
No, that's no problem at all. It's food for thought, most definitely. We are drawing to the end of the show though, and I don't know, guys, do you want to leave with any reflective thoughts on, like, I don't even think we really discussed being black and in love, because it's so packed with so many different nuances. I think we didn't even scratch the surface.
It's more about interracial relationships.
It was.
As opposed to being black and in love. But I think we touched on it a little bit. And maybe we need to just have another episode on it, or kind of like delve a bit further into it in season 2.
Should we do you want to give them a hint on what's going to happen in season 2 on this topic?
Do you?
I don't know. It might be about apps.
Ooh, we should do like a field experiment where we all do match apps.
Teaser!
Or we do a profile and we see the responses that we get. We do like a dummy thingy.
Well, it's changed a lot, isn't it?
We'll
Because
test the waters.
back in the day, everyone would have their... I don't know about the black Muslims, but I know as a Muslim community, you always have your aunties sort yourself out. Yeah. But now, of course, with this online strong presence of finding your partner through online apps, it's a discussion that a lot of people are having. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, it's taboo to kind of find your partner online. But a lot of people have found their partner online, you know, and this is kind of not just within the black Muslim community. A lot of Muslims, full stop, they're saying like, this is the way forward, you know, this is the way to find your partner. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects black Muslims, or does it affect black Muslims differently to other Muslims? You know, is that the same experience, or do black Muslims experience racism on these sites, or maybe they don't? I don't know. I'm
not entirely sure. I think I remember when I used to be on Musmatch, there was a lot of there's a high volume of divorced black brothers actually on there, based in London, and I think it's literally on the with the thing with dating apps is that it's very much on a superficial level, where you're stating what exactly it is that you envision your marriage to be like, and whether you find your potential spouse appealing to the eye or not. And then once you go on a few halal dates and glean whether I can go forward, then you move forward. Does that make sense? Whereas I don't know, with it's a bit like the whole auntie system where they say, this is what I want, this is what you want, this is what they look like. Do you like her? Do you like him? Okay, let's get married.
So what's the non-superficial way? Because isn't that like the most traditional way to kind of people bring out their CVs? Do you know what I mean? Like you look at job, you look at how much money this person's earning, you look at a couple of their interests.
Bro, that's on the marriage CV?
Yeah, have you not heard of a marriage CV?
I know about CV, I don't think the salary would be in there.
I don't
yeah,
know. Is the salary? Okay, I don't. Okay, but yeah, so you put two
maybe
CVs
not
together.
salary exactly, but your profession.
they're-
So then you can go on Google and then see what he could potentially.
And that's been working for a long time for people. Do you know what I mean? It's been working for a long time, and of course they've tried to put that now onto the marriage apps. I don't know if that's
My brother's
superficial.
getting insecure that I'm right. Need to cover salary.
To a certain extent, I think when I say superficial, I think probably based on like the pictures and the images and so on and so forth, and
Just based on someone's looks.
exactly. So I guess that in itself could just be a pitfall with regards to who you're looking to get married to in general, anyway. But yeah, I think sometimes it's quite vacuous, and if you feel as though you as an individual don't fit a certain aesthetic, then you will get overlooked. On that note, we must bid you adieu. It's been an awesome topic. My name is Soraya Bar. I have Mohammed and Sakina Lenoir. If you wish to follow more of what we are up to, we are on various different social media platforms. On Facebook, we are Black and Muslim in Britain. On Twitter, we are at BMB Project. On Instagram, we are Black and Muslim BRI. And we are on YouTube as well. So please, if you can find a time, go on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, comment on them, and let us know what you think. We will be back from 4 till 5 p.m. next week, Saturday. This is Ramadan FM 2018. And yeah, stay woke.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Amigos.